All right, welcome back. Now a total of 300.
Hold on, you decided to stay behind the cameras and do some production activity, leaving me here all by myself.
I was with you in the spirit.
In the spirit.
You know, we connect sometimes.
All right, so welcome back indeed.
Welcome back. Okay, now this segment particularly is concerning 376 Nigerians who, fleeing the Sudan crisis, and they have arrived Abuja in what is now the first batch of a government-assisted evacuation exercise. Now, the evacuees arrived in an aircraft owned by Air Peace and the Nigerian Air Force, which conveyed the evacuees from Aswan in Egypt to Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Now, while Air Peace conveyed 282, NAF conveyed 96 evacuees. And this is according to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Umar Farouk. Now, interestingly, if you do know that when these evacuees, before they arrived, it was quite a tussle. We're hearing several information as to what caused them to have not arrived on time. Well, it is part of the situation that we'll be talking about this morning. Now, both aircraft arrived minutes apart. The Minister of Disaster Management and Humanitarian Affairs, Ms. Farouk, said the government of Nigeria is happy that all of them are back safely, no lives lost, which is the most important thing, and of all the efforts put in place have not gone in vain. She added that the evacuees would arrive and receive dignity parks and 100,000 naira as transportation supported by the Dangote Foundation. They will also receive 25,000 naira worth of call vouchers and a data bundle of 1.5 gigabytes from MTN. An interesting one, isn't it? Now, we have right here in the studio Dr. Olatunbi. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
How are you?
Very fine, Mr.
And of course, we have joining us virtually Kunle, right? Kunle Akirili.
John Akirili.
Oh, John Akirili. John Akirili. John, good morning.
John. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Okay, so now we all know what transpired for Nigerians who were stuck in Sudan. We saw the process it took to eventually convey them down here. It got to a point their buses caught fire on the road. They were assisted by the rapid support group of in Sudan, those who are part of the ongoing war there. And then, of course, we also heard that they were stuck in the desert at some point while they were on transit because the money was not yet complete, according to the drivers of those vehicles. Eventually, we'll have about 300 and something of them who have arrived, assisted by Alan Oyema's Air Peace, along with the Nigerian Air Force, Asman Air. So here is the scenario. What do you think these, would I say, students plus, the other residents who have one or two things doing in Sudan, how do you think this whole process has psychologically affected them?
At least I want to appreciate the government for trying to evacuate Nigerians from Sudan down here. But over the week, it's been a very hard tussle for them. They've been on this journey for over a week. They were in Egypt, and from Egypt they were there for like 4 to 5 days before eventually coming down to Nigeria. War and any crisis affects people both physically and emotionally. Physically, probably injuries, dislocations, death of loved ones. Emotionally, emotional affectation of this war is the most important thing to even check it about. We have depression, anxiety. There's something we call post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, because when they start thinking about what has happened before, losing your loved ones, losing someone that you've been together for a long time, is actually one thing we should actually check into consideration. The federal government have tried by giving them money, but I feel they should check about this psychological effect of this war for these people coming down to Nigeria. I think they should even create a program, even if it's a 2 weeks program or even 1 month program, to try to support them psychologically, because psychological affectation is even more than physical affectation sometimes.
What about the Nigerians who have eventually decided to settle down in Sudan? Like, that place is their main residence now. They don't have any accommodation right here. What do you think is going to happen? They're here now. Where would they be placed?
That's it, because 100,000 naira is just nothing
for now.
Because they just say 100,000. Okay, they want to settle down. They'll go and rent an apartment. Where is the apartment of 100,000 for how many months? So I think they should actually have an extensive program for these people not just letting them to go back to their family. Some people don't even have a family there. Some people have been staying there for years. Now they're back to starting from the scratch. I think the government should work more on their psychological evaluation and examination.
All right, John. Hello, John.
I'm here. I can hear you.
All right, great. Well, I can't exactly hear you clearly, but I know you can hear me. Now let's look at some of the complaints that the returnees have given. They said they paid monies to use the bathroom. They paid monies to brush. They went through what one would call harrowing experiences. Now, as put by one of the dailies, the Vanguard newspaper put this as saying that some of them said they said their last prayers. They said we were sexually harassed.
Wow.
We stole to survive. They had to, go through all of that. I mean, for somebody to say, look, I had to do this. I was broke and I had to steal to survive. I will take it that it wasn't, the person wasn't proud of doing that, but it was something that, they just had to do to get food in their tummy. Now, what do you think, how do you think the government should, I'll use the word rehabilitate these people before they are made to go back home to their families, because they must have been traumatized, greatly traumatized. What should the government do now?
Thank you for having me. I think the bigger trauma that they are having is the fact that they're returning home. I think the first question we should ask is, why did these people leave Nigeria in the first place? If Nigeria was a working system, they wouldn't have the reason to have left. Now they've gone there out of their own volition and will to find a better life for themselves. And here they are, they have come at this roadblock. Coming back home for them is more of a bigger trauma. And I think this is where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should work more on profiling. Okay? Let's know the number of Nigerians that are in Sudan, either legally or illegally. Those who are legal, can we have their profile? Can we have their family members? When did they move from Nigeria to where they are now? And who are the family members that you can trace back? That's the first thing we should do. The second thing we should do, again, is to look at the fact that how many of them are students? How many of them are working? How many of them own a business in Sudan? How many of them have a family in Sudan? This is another thing that we must do, communal profiling. It's only when you have this profile, I have all this data, that you can now look at different programs that you can bring up. Let's say, for instance, somebody who is a secondary school student in Sudan, and the person is coming back home. Are you going to enroll such in our own local school here, or you are going to enroll such a person into extracurricular activities or into homeschooling or something? So the best thing is, after you must have done a psychological rehabilitation, I think the mindset orientation is very, very key and very important. They must look at the reasons why they have left Sudan and now they are back in Nigeria. Now, either you want to go back to Sudan or not, what can you do as now that you're in Nigeria? There is war in Sudan or civil unrest in Sudan. You can't go outside, it's not safe for you. But now that you're here, what are the things that you can do? So these, I think, they will give options. Some of them will tell you want to learn a skill, some of them want to learn a trade, some of them want to start buying and selling. And these are what will come from the profiling. And once that is done, then the government can now look at emergency funds. I think we have our National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, who can always say, okay, we have some funds that we allocated for such a scenario. Okay, in case of unrest, civil unrest, in case of war or riot, in case of earthquake or any natural disaster. These are palliative measures that should come to people like this. And I think 100,000 naira, it's a good one, but it's just a pinch of a salt. That can only take them to buy food, but that cannot give them that sustainability that we're looking for. So on a long stretch, if the government is really sincere helping these people, is to look at the ways by which you can integrate them back into the system systematically. Okay, it will be in stages, okay, and it will be in periods. Just like the NYS orientation for our corpers, we can also duplicate such a scenario for these our returnees. Some of them are students, some of them are business owners, some of them are family men and women. And so all of these are things I think they should do so that these people can, have this confidence that they are back and they are well taken care of. And the idea of going back to Sudan might not emanate from their brain again if the country works the way it ought to work.
Right, interesting look at things there. Now, the minister, I beg your pardon, the chairman CEO of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, did say that some schools will have to take them in. Schools are indicating interest to, take them in so they continue their education, and that is for the students. Now, the truth of the matter is, we have focused majorly on students. There are other people who are not students who went there to make a living. All right. So it's interesting that you said this. Now, let's also look at in getting them back into the system. Should we be concerned that a few of them might have been radicalized? Should we have that concern? John?
Well, I think that is why profiling for me is very, very key and important. Profiling for me is just like the foundation, to solving these problems. From profiling, there are so many things I can get from profiling. And that's why you can get to know the kind of person they are, what they've been doing in Sudan for about a decade or about 5 years or so. And then you can be able to see, if you say that somebody is being radical, there will be an iota of radicalism in him. Okay? And so such a person cannot just come to Nigeria and become a saint overnight. So when there's true profiling, you can get to see, the landmarks of what these people have been doing, their dealings in years past. And from that, you can decode or connote that this is what we can do to these people. And this is how we can help them, to rehabilitate them psychologically, mindset orientation and all of that before we can now integrate them back into society. Now, let's not forget also that Sudan, is a country that's a bit sensitive when it comes to some issues. And so when you have Nigerians who have been living in such a country for a very long period of time, then there will be this kind of skepticism. People will be skeptical about you one way or the other because you're from Sudan and you have lived over the years. So the government also, on its other hand, should look at how, you can bring up programs of de-radicalization. Okay, it might not be to the extreme like that of the Boko Haram repentant Boko Haram members, but then there's an iota of, being radical with these people. And so we must also look at how to combat this, with our own strategy so that we can have a balanced people and then we can have a sane society.
All right, Dr. Onatobi, this next question is for you. The reason why I'm specific about the psychological and mental state of these Nigerians is the fact that there was something that made them leave this country and they went to Sudan. Imagine a Sudan that has always been a war-torn country. Ever since 1956, that is supposedly gained their independence, Sudan has always had one coup d'etat or the other, literally being under a military regime. And you wonder why Nigerians will leave this, no matter how supposedly, would I say, a little bit fractured that things are in this part of the world. Some persons will say, oh, Nigerians are lucky to go all the way to reside in Sudan. I'm not even talking about the students who went there to study. Now, for you to go there, right, something made you leave your country. That very thing that made you leave here to go to a place like that is deep. Now you're returning because you've now seen that that place is no longer comfortable. And you're coming back to a place that made you feel depressed, a place that made you think you have no opportunity, a place that made you feel you have no future in. So what do you think the psychological and emotional state of mind of these Nigerians will be now? Because the question is beyond the 100,000 naira they gave them or the 25,000 naira data kit that was given to them. It's about how do they now start surviving? How do they begin to recuperate their mind? So what is the process of debriefing with these Nigerians?
It's a sad situation for Nigerians over there, but I must say that traveling out of the country might not even be because of bad reasons. Some people just want to travel out of the country, just want to experience other cultures. They just want to feel what is happening in Sudan. Let's just go and check other cultures. Some people go there for schooling. Some people go there based on scholarship. Most of the people that actually there are, I think there's an Islamic scholarship for Muslims.
Yes.
So that's why most people
state governors.
For state governors, that's why they go there. But this psychological effect of them coming back to the country, sometimes it might be positive and it might be negative for some people. We have some people in Sudan that are actually stranded over there. They are even looking for opportunities to come back to Nigeria. They don't have transport fare. They are looking for how to even come back. And I feel this is an opportunity for some of them to be like, oh, thank God this is happening. Let's come back home and let's come and retrace our steps. But I feel the steps to check these psychological effects, apart from the government's intervention, it's a call to NGOs, organizations to work with the government and try to have an orientation program. This is where psychologists comes into play.
Okay.
Psychologists come. What Mr. John has said, profiling is very, very important. Check how long have you been in Sudan. Okay, what work have you been doing in Sudan? Okay, what made you even leave the country? From there, they will know how to rehabilitate them back into the society. They cannot just tell them to go back into the society and start living like a normal people. No, people have gone through a lot of trauma. Sexual violence is one of the major trauma in during war, like what Mr. Mr. Moses has said about sexual violence. It's very, very common. Children are actually suffering more. Children, women, young people are actually suffering more from these things. So we shouldn't focus more on students. Let's even focus more on the young ones, the children, how they've suffered. Malnutrition is another thing. They've not been eating for days. And you know, when you are malnourished, you are predisposed to a lot of diseases, non-communicable diseases, cough, a lot of non-communicable diseases, and they are being jam-packed into one area. So they shouldn't even come into the society and start infecting people with this kind of thing. So the best thing the Nigerian government should have done is take them to an evaluation center, let them spend 2 weeks.
Okay.
These 2 weeks, they do physical examination, psychological examination.
So are you saying within the 2 weeks, the family members will not be able to see them?
No, the family members can come visiting, but at least they should just put a restriction. They should be visiting hours, visiting time. To let the family members know that, okay, we are just rehabilitating them back. After 2 weeks, they will come back to you. The family members will just for their own sanity, because
Wouldn't that in itself traumatize them even more? Knowing that, okay, because of what they went through, they are being cordoned off from society.
No, it won't traumatize them if they do it in a well-mannered way. When they try to explain to them that, okay, we are doing these things for your own good, and they're giving them, when they're not putting them there, they shouldn't even make them remember the war. They should give them proper food, a proper environment, give them proper food, proper medical attention. They will be happy. Someone I've not eaten for days and you're still telling me I should come and so they give them proper food, proper examination, and they'll be fine. After that, they can rehabilitate. They can take them back to the society. And one thing about psychological effects of war is that it even lingers on for years. 1 year, 2 years, you start having flashback of that incident and trigger something. So they should try and work on that. And I know the government will do that, and I pray they do that anyways.
John. Hello. John, can you hear me? Yes, good.
I'm here.
Some of the Nigerians who returned, while they were trying to express themselves to a couple of their relatives who came to greet them or welcome them back home, and even to some Nigerian government officials who, tried to make them feel comfortable, they said something that, may Nigeria never experience war. And for them to have told you that, it tells you that when we look at how things are going on here, and you hear some people trying to say, oh, let's exempt ourselves. We're no longer part of Nigeria. We no longer belong to this country because of certain situations that they're not comfortable with. One would tell you that, okay, do they understand the implication of the statements that they make? What's your take on that, especially for Nigerians who possibly feel the country is so bad that it's important for every region to just go their way? Do you think that's the best solution, especially from the experiences of these Nigerians who just returned from a war-torn country?
Thank you for that question. If you look at Sudan has been a troubled country for as long as I've known Sudan to be. And if you check it out, Sudan was a fraction of a bigger country before there was a split. Okay? And now there's a split, and there's still unrest. And I'll say to you, the problem we have in this country, Nigeria, is not about the country. It's not about people going their different ways. It's about leadership. And that is the problem we have, nothing more. No natural disaster. The disaster we have is about leadership. And so when you have true and inspirational leadership, the followers will come in line. I can say that to you boldly, any day, anytime. Now, we have different regions, okay? Majorly, we have three, Hausas, Igbo, and Yorubas. Apart from that, we have other ethnic groups, over 220 of them, which means that we are not just one people. Okay, we are one people with diverse tongue, diverse food, diverse culture and tradition, and diverse languages. And that means that we cannot come together. But we still see unity in our diversity. And that is what our leaders should preach more and, give people the true dividends of democracy. Let's have equity, fairness, justice. And you see that these agitations you are talking about, going their different ways, will become a thing of the past. I'm telling you boldly, that will just go away without any, exchanging of firearms or bullets. So the best thing we should do as a country is, yes, we are saying we should not experience war. Ukraine and Russia, they are having their own issues since, but there's light in Ukraine. Is Nigeria fighting war that we cannot even have constant electricity supply in Nigeria? Since they gave back to me, it has been like that until now, it's still like that. And we are not fighting war. Others are even having war. They even have better solution than us that are not fighting war. And so people are pushed to the wall and they can tell you, it's not they will even fight war and let them be the way they are. But to be on a good side, we can say that we should not pray for war, we should not wish for war, but our leaders all across broad, the local government, to your councillor, to your state governor, to your house of assembly, everybody who is in the position of authority should do the needful, work on fairness, justice, and equity, give democracy to the people, the electorate that elected you, and make sure that it's about service to public good and not for personal interest or personal gain. Then and then can we say we are truly one country. Then and then can every member of any ethnic group can say that we are part of Nigeria. Why? Because we are all contributing to the federating unit called Nigeria. Okay? And that is why we must do the same thing across board for everybody. Let's bring, everybody, all-inclusive governance. Let's bring either from the northeast, southwest, south, bring everybody together on a round table and let's build this country together. Enough of, statements that will tear us apart? No. But rather, we can work together, even with our diverse tongue, and build a better nation that will now inspire leadership in our younger generations, because we have younger generations now. And the problem we have is transgenerational problem. And so I think this leadership, present leadership now, should take it upon themselves and see that this that they have now is for them to save a generation, so that Nigeria can be great again. And I believe Nigeria can be great again, if you ask me.
All right, talking about Nigeria being great and the perception of Nigeria in Africa, I'm not even talking about the world over now, in Africa alone, it seems troubling to me and to a lot of Nigerians. We saw what happened. As the evacuees made their way to Egypt, they were prevented from entering Aswan border. And that was basically, nothing was said as to why the authorities in Egypt prevented Nigerians, and they stayed at the border for days. I think 5 days or thereabouts. They were there. Eventually, the president had to call the Egyptian president, and then they were allowed in with conditions. One of the conditions were that they must ensure that their names and everything, that these are actually Nigerians, their passports verified that they are Nigerians, and then they would leave immediately. So one would wonder, we don't seem to command respect in Africa. And this is coming before you go on. I know you would say Nigerians, we are no longer the giants of Africa. Now, but what should we look at now? All right, what are the things that we should look at to address this in case there's another need to address Nigeria's image abroad and evacuate Nigerians from any other war-torn area abroad?
Thank you. I think the first thing we need to do is to make Nigeria work. And when Nigeria works, the respect you want from other countries will come naturally. When Nigeria becomes that hub, that industrial hub of the world, not only Africa, industrial hub of the world, then can we say that the respect you want to get from Egyptians, you get it naturally. Now, if Egyptian authorities are saying to you, they just want profiling, that's all. Nothing more. They want to know that truly you are Nigerians and that some other people are not using the same window to escape Sudan, whereas they're not Nigerians, and then come into Egypt and cause chaos for them in Egypt. So they don't want such a thing. So all they are doing is profiling. And now the profiling is that once you come in, you are verified Nigeria, yes, come in. But once you are coming in, you are leaving our country, which means that they don't make provision for you to stay in Egypt. Now, that is where our bilateral trade and talk comes in. So what is the standing of Nigeria with Egypt as regard this Sudan crisis? Mind you, we must have existing relationship before now, but when there are critical times call for critical decisions. And I think at the point where there was this crisis at Sudan, a call should have...
I beg to interrupt you. Talking about critical times, we saw India evacuate non-Indians. Indians evacuated non-Indians to
Ukraine,
India.
Even
yes.
Russia as well.
Evacuated,
Russia did.
and told people, okay, come and take your people from here. That shows strength. That shows a cordial relationship. Why is ours different?
That's why we're Nigerians. Ours is always different. Okay. I think on a more serious note, these are KPIs that is troubling, and that saddens my heart as a Nigerian. If an Egyptian or the Egyptian authority can say that, then is a very strong and sound language that we should not take lightly. If that can happen in Egypt, what do you think will happen in Morocco and South Africa? Yeah. These are still African countries. What do you think will happen in Ghana, even in Benin that is close to us? And so that is why leaders must understand that the projections, what we project out from Nigeria to the African countries should command respect, should show true leadership, should show commitment to people and governance as it speaks. Now, if Indians can evacuate non-Indians, it's because they have a large debt and they feel that they can curtail or that they have a system that can control it. You can't go into India today and you say you want to run away. If you like, run anywhere, you will come back, because when you get to a point where you cannot get accommodation for yourself, you can't get food at a store, then you understand that you need to go back and do your documentation so that you can live like a normal person in India. But we don't have some of these structures. And I feel that this is now a call to action to our foreign, ambassadors to other countries, that they should come back home, have a good meeting with other ambassadors and see how we can project Nigeria as truly giants and see how we can correct some of these abnormalities that is happening. And so that Nigerians who are outside the shores of this country, Nigeria, will command that same respect, and then they will behave themselves in an orderly manner that respect will be them ordinarily. So for Egypt, I won't blame Egypt. That is their own procedure. That is their own methodology. Then the question now is, Nigeria, what is your own procedure and methodology as it relates to foreigners coming in or going out of the country?
All right, Dr. Olatunbi, one of the ambassador to Sudan, while he was welcoming them, Mohammed Yusuf, he said that very soon the situation there will be calm. That the army is already, it seems like the army has an edge to eventually resolve the crisis on there. But do you think at this point, with it, one can capitalize, or would I say contextualize the situation as a double horror situation, the horror of war and the horror of the process of getting evacuated? Do you think at some point that Nigerians will ever trust the ability of the federal government to help when critical situations like that come up?
Nigerians they are not going to trust the government, because the government have failed even we that are actually in this country without having any war. Not talk of people coming in from other countries. So I don't see any trust from these evacuees coming to the government. And they've been praying for ceasefire. They've been talking about ceasefire, and I think it's been going on. And the question is, are these people ready to go back to Sudan even after the war is over? Because I feel some of them will still want to go back. And what are the preparatory, what are we going to do for them to go back? Are we going to give them some sort of orientation, some sort of support to go back? Because some of them still need to continue their education over there. Some of them are in their final year. So all these things we still need to check into. And the Nigerian government needs to even support them more. This is the time we need to support them, not even only Sudan, for more emergency situations like this. Because there are still going to be a lot of Nigerians in all other countries, Ukraine, everywhere you have Nigerians, and things like this might still happen. So the government should be proactive towards things like this. Next time, I think we should have an organization for a plan, a program drawn out for people that are actually experiencing war or any emergency situation out of the country. 5 years plan, 3 years plan is not bad enough. 3 years plan how to make sure that you support them physically, emotionally, financially. 100,000 naira, I think, is too small. They can still give them more. That's why I called for NGOs, people, philanthropists can actually help. We have only 345 now in Nigeria. There are still more coming. I think we're having over 5,000 people coming back.
All right.
So I think we should have an extensive program for these people.
Do you think that it is important for us to have more educational institutions? For example, you have an International University of Africa situated in Sudan, where one of the students who were telling some of their relatives there that he prays Nigeria never experiences war. Do you think we can have such collaborations where we have some universities, established in this part of the world that could, offer courses like international studies, whereby our Nigerian students who intend to study or who are inclined towards such careers do not have to go to neighboring countries to study? So if you have an International University of Africa, how come we don't have something like that here, besides the Pan-African University anyways? But we can have more of that available. That is one. Two, is it possible for the government to try as much as possible to resuscitate the educational structure, create an image of sincerity of purpose for our institutions, to encourage Nigerians' belief in the educational system, rather than having to go to countries that we seem to even have a better profile than to study?
That's one thing we need to work on, because the educational sector in this country needs to be overhauled. We need to check on it, because people still go to Benin Republic to school. And when you compare the educational, all they gain and here, Nigeria is far better than these countries.
They're speaking French.
But we need to work more. The educational sector needs to be checked into, creating more universities, building more universities, employing more lecturers, putting money in research, because these are the things that makes your educational system more better. Okay. Research, educational research, even international people who want to come. Gone are those days people come from the UK to study in Nigeria. Come to the University of Ibadan, had international people coming there to come and study. But now the reverse is the case. People want to go there, to go outside the country to study. It's not that because our educational system is not good. We have brilliant people. Nigerians are brilliant. Because even we that study in Nigeria, when we go out of the country to work, we perform better.
All right. Well, I honestly hope, I wish we could talk more, especially about the health part of these people, these Nigerians that just returned from Sudan. But time is really not on our side. But before we go, one last question to John Akirele. Are you still with us, John?
Okay.
All right, great.
I'm here.
Now, we heard the evacuees complain that they were starved for 12 hours. Well, they said Nigerian officials starved us for 12 hours. Now, let's look at this very quickly, too. In line with the fact that $1.2 million was, disbursed to evacuate them. And it's expected that the money should cover both transportation and welfare, and also to settle, whatever needed to be done to get them from Sudan to wherever they were evacuated from. And then we also had the embassy officials say that we didn't receive any money from anywhere, so don't blame us, don't harass us. What should we do differently now? This is what is before us. All right. What should Nigeria? Who should be held responsible?
I think it's a very straightforward question. There is a DG, a Director General, that heads that agency, and there is another agency that said they transfer the funds. There is also a director at that agency. So these two directors or these two agencies should be called out, and then the question should be asked: as at what time was this money transferred? As at what time did they get the money? So if A is saying he didn't get the money, B is saying I've sent money to A didn't get the money, is the money hanging in the air or something? So the point is that we're still going back to what I've been saying all along, is the sincerity of leadership. when our leaders will be sincere, to do things that they ought to do, that they will be responsible, in terms of delivering the dividend of democracy to the people, even to the political appointees. So it's so bad now that at this point in time, that these people are in their need of, medical checkup, welfare packages, mindset reduction and all that. Somebody are still somewhere pushing blames to each other. They get money or they did not get money. Yeah. That's the state of the country, and that should be corrected. So these two agencies, I think the president, even though I know he's tired, and he can't wait to move to Daura or he moves to Nigeria, as he has said, he should just call on these two people with this few number of days that is remaining and ask these questions. These are people's children, these are people's uncles and aunties, these are people's fathers and mothers, and they are in the need of these funds. And these funds should be disbursed to them as quick as possible so that they can respond to some critical issues, and then we can have them back, they can be sane again. They can be balanced psychologically and mentally, and then we can say that they are Nigerians and they can be integrated back in society. But then you have said that these people should go into our Nigerian schools. Are you also saying to them that when they come into the Nigerian system, will strike not still happen again? If strike happen, these people will still be devastated again and again. And I think that does not happen.
Questions and more questions are rising, but we have to wrap up this segment of the show. I must say a very big thank you to you, Dr. Olawale Olatubi, medical practitioner. Thank you very much. And also to John Akirile, public affairs analyst. We do appreciate your contribution every time. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you for having me.
And another set of Nigerians are stranded here in the country. Certainly, they can't fly. And the financial loss from that could run into potential billions. Well, let's talk about that one in a moment. Stay with us.